You should be able to raise a generation of children who can choose what is right and what is wrong, who can decide what is right. You should not tell them that you study this or you don't study that. When we took the Pisa test, India featured nowhere. We featured at the bottom. So that speaks something about our system. I don't think we spend enough on research. We don't invest on research. We don't invest enough on basic sciences, IITs or the IIMs. Is there no way that we can take the pressure off them by having equally good institutions for vocational training that will give people livelihood?
Hello, one and all, and welcome to the Higher Education and Career Community powered by Thinkly. As you all know, that Thinkly is a content platform that brings all of us the most curated knowledge, and it brings a curated knowledge to help all of us thrive in today's disruptive world. My name is Vijay Sonawane, and I'm a higher education consultant, and I help students wayfind their careers, help them to get into their dream colleges and secure the best scholarship. Just last week, one of our students received a full ride scholarship from University of Toronto, and that amounts to 329,000 Canadian dollar. There is almost 100% scholarship, right? And today, I'm super excited to host Mrs. Damayanti Bhattacharya ji. I'm going to call her Damayanti ma'am because that's more relevant to, calling principal ma'am. Okay, right. And we are going to have a conversation on our education system, whether it is fractured, whether it is broken, what is the outlook, what all things we need to do, and everything. Yeah, and so I take this pleasure in introducing Damayanti ma'am to all of you. So Damayanti ma'am is a distinguished educator with over 30 years of impactful experience, renowned for her ability to build institution and her exemplary leadership track record. She stands as a master of innovation and vision. In recognition of her outstanding contribution, Damayanti ma'am was honored with the iconic leadership award in 2020. Currently, she is serving as the principal of Chasudaben ML School, Mumbai, and prior to that, she spent over 20 years at the Cathedral and John Cannon School, Mumbai. She holds an MA in English from the University of Kolkata. And beyond education, she is deeply committed to causes closer to her heart. In her spare time, she actively contributes to the promotion of art, music, and animal welfare. A change maker at her core, she believes in the power of adaptability in today's VUCA world. It's because it's more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, and embracing the philosophy of survival of the fittest. Okay, this is the only skill which can really help you thrive in this disruptive world. Damayanti ma'am, we are truly honored to have you with us, and I'm sure next 45 odd minutes will be very, very insightful, right? And we are happy to have you here with us.
Thank you, Mr. Sonawane. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know how much of it I deserve, but thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yes, yes. So, ma'am, to begin with, let me take you down the memory lane and ask you to reflect on your journey over the past 30 years. How have you been? How have you seen our education system evolved during this time? You may start from your own experience as a student, then as a teacher, and now as a principal. And what are your key observations?
So, Mr. Sonawane, actually for me, I'm very fortunate. For me, the learning curve has been really huge. When I began school, I began with the nitty-gritties of cursive writing. And now I'm sending SMSs and emails and, typing question papers on the computer. So for us who were born at that age, this has been a huge learning for all of us. So the process has been painful but gainful, because that's the way to go. As a child, when I grew up in Kolkata, and I had a very uncomplicated childhood where we went to school. Uh, I don't remember going for any tuition classes. We did our homework at home, and if we didn't do it, if it was not done, we went to school the next day and we got fired for it. But we took it, and my parents did not take umbrage to that. And I had a hobby that I followed, all right? And it was pretty much between that, and I played games. So school life was full, very uncomplicated, a lot of activities in school because that's the school that I grew up in. Work pressure was there, but it was not, all enveloping kind of work pressure. And uh, I had a lot of free time to play in the evenings, and I pursued a hobby. So yes, that's what my childhood was about. And my parents always told me that, whatever you do, you have to uh, you have to do something for yourself. That is about all. They did not then tell me you do this or you do that or sit on my head to take up my work and things like that. How well I did in a test, how badly and I did it, it was my problem. So I grew up learning a lot of life skills in the process. All right. I had a wonderful time growing up in a joint family where my cousins were there. We played, and I learned to interact with people. I learned to make space for people. Uh, we had people coming over to stay at home during our summer vacations and stuff like that. So we learned to compromise. If I need to sleep on the floor, that's what I would do. My cousins would be sleeping or my aunt would be sleeping on the bed. So those are not things that or consciously or actively my parents taught. Those social skills were taken for granted. I ironed my own school uniform, I polished my own shoes, I sewed the torn button on my uniform if it was torn. So those are things that I grew up with. All right. Going ahead, of course, when I did my masters, when I did my college, uh, it was again Kolkata being Kolkata, a lot of focus on academics, but there too, I found the professors never spoon fed us. They said, here's the bibliography. All right. If you've come to do an honors course, it is expected that you will have to work that much harder. Here's the bibliography. Please read and come. So the lectures were based on what we read, and we used to read up. We used to do our reference work, go to the library, do the reference work, and then the teachers. I mean, now in retrospect, I think it's that, it was that flipped classroom that we followed. All right. The teaching began. So how many things I learned without knowing the value of those things that I learned. All right. It was interwoven into the learning system, the education system that we had. All right. And it gave me a son because I did that reference work and because I read 5 books before I went to my class. I got a solid foundation. I got a very solid foundation. I mean, information was not available at the click of a button, which I used later on when I was teaching, actually, because that was so much easier to do. But when I was a student, I went through those. I plowed through those books. We plowed through those books, and I think I gained by doing all of that. Yes. So a lot of other skills, hidden skills that I learned over there is all when you have access to so much information, what information to use where and when and how is also a skill that I learned when I did my reference work. Yes. So those are the things that were inbuilt into our system of education when I studied. So I think, yes, it was a very solid system that I went through. It was rigorous. It was not easy, very competitive. And we had many, many brilliant children all around, very focused on education. So yeah, I did that. In school, when I started teaching, that began actually my second phase of learning began there. Because learning as a student and learning as a teacher are different things. Because when you are teaching in class, you have to ensure that everybody understands. When you are learning for yourself, you only are responsible for yourself. All right. So that was a different kind of a learning that I had to do when I was teaching in class, in school. I found initially when I started learning, when I started teaching, that I had a very good crop of students, very interested, very good crop of students, very interested in learning, you know. Then somewhere along the line, I don't know what took over, whether it is the social media or whether it is just the change of times or whether it is society itself, where we had access to so much of information. Society is constantly in a state of flux. All right. So whether it was all of that, somewhere I found that slowly the idea of change, learning to studying to learn, that change, that was replaced by studying to get marks. Somewhere
Yes.
in the 80s and the 90s, mid 90s, or around that place, not even 80s, mid 90s, or maybe to early 2000, somewhere there was a shift, and I saw a shift in the student profile. I saw a clear shift in the student. I mean, do we need to do this because we're getting marked for it? Or are we doing this because, no question as to what I'm learning from it. So somewhere a shift had begun. And I really don't know. At this point, it's been too many years. I can't really pinpoint whether what really caused that change. But yes, there was a change. So yes, to and then from then on, there was a mass change, and then I would say a lot of the things that there was a shift in focus from this textual learning to learning things outside the text, to learning things. The world opened up, people were traveling more, there was more awareness. So all that changes, and change is something that is inevitable in life. Yeah. So that's what my uh, thought is.
Okay. So as you said that at that particular time you were involved in more of exploration, the education system that triggered your metacognition and even in the students, right? So, and you have also mentioned that how we are in the current situation that things have changed, right? So then, would you say that if you look at our current education system, is it a broken or does it have the potential for transformation?
See, as an educator, I'm always very hopeful. I don't think our education system is broken, because if it's something that has worked for so many years, see, the core of the education system is not broken at all. It's not, it's how we are delivering that education. What we need to change, perhaps, or relook at is, I can give you specific examples. For example, when the syllabus is set, okay, uh, we should have young people who know what's happening more in the world than some, very old retired, I'm sorry, but I'm also there, but so I can say old retired teachers with not really so many fresh ideas, who's making the syllabus. All right, then that's number one. So I would really like it if young people came up and said, look, this is the need of the hour. Let's make our syllabus like this. All right. That's number one. Number two is, again, at the cost of, may not be making such a popular statement, politicizing education. That is really something that has to be free. Any country that politicizes education is having this in the book, not that in the book, leaving out parts of history, including wrong facts in books. I don't think that you're doing the students a favor, because you have to grow up learning things as they are or as they were. To choose from there, you should be able to raise a generation of children who can choose what is right and what is wrong, who can decide what is right. You should not tell them that you study this or you don't study that. So that's number two. Number three is that we definitely, we are a we're a country with a huge population. So there are about how many that we have? India is a country with more than 1 billion people. And even now, only 1/3 of the population can read. All right. When we took the Pisa test, India featured nowhere. We featured at the bottom. So that speaks something about our system. Definitely, I don't take that, keep that, I'm not blind to that. But I think what we need to do is two things. One is how to reach out, make education available to the urban, to every person, how to make it available to every person. In that case, what is the system that we should follow? And the other thing is that, higher education in our country really, really needs to be, when I say higher education, I say, college and above, it really, really needs a lot of changes to bring in a lot of fresh ideas, to allow people to do a lot of research work. I don't think we spend enough on research. We don't invest on research. We don't invest enough on basic sciences, all right, learning physics, chemistry, mathematics, uh, or just doing, I was just talking to a child today whose father said that, I want my child to do architecture. So I said, then why not civil engineering? Because you need civil engineers even today, then your big bridges wouldn't collapse.
Yeah.
So, so what I say is that it is okay to introduce the changes, but to keep a happy amalgamation of the good things in our education system, yes, and to build on those is what we need to do. So I don't say it's fractured. We have, see, today, I think, as per the Forbes, about 17 big top MNCs in the world have Indians as CEOs. So something is good in our education system. The rigor in our system is good, but we need to adapt according to the needs of and we can't drag our feet. In which case, we need people who are clean, who are thinking ahead. We need young people in the system who will tell us how to take that ahead quickly.
Correct, ma'am. So, ma'am, I mean, what you said is absolutely bang on. But at the same time, if we look at in the current situation, we have a challenges. And as you pointed out that, our higher education system needs to look at, right? Now, there's a mad rat race because you talked about billion students, right? Uh, I mean, billion population.
Yeah.
So we have only maybe perhaps 17,000 seats for IIT, and there are 24 lakh students appearing for it, right? We have around 1 lakh seats, maybe about 55,000 with the government colleges, and we have medicine seats. They are so small, and again, around 24 lakh students are are applying for it. So we have been right criticized that our education system is based on rote memorization. But when I look at it and when I empathetically look at it, I mean, as a student, if I am a student, I have no option but to be in that particular rat race. So how would you comment on this catch 22 situation, right? And as a result of which, we are not in a position to develop the innovative thinking, critical thinking, etc., right? Because just 2 days back, I came across with an article which appeared in Times of India, that where India stand on Nobel Prize comparison, right? In last 94 years after C.V. Raman, none of the Indian origin person has got a Nobel, right? That's a big cause, right? So how do you look at it, and what is that we need to do in our education system, that will kind of accept a more innovative mindset, more critical thinking, etc.
Yeah. So as I see it, I think there are two parts to your question. One part is the higher education part of it, and the other part is that the lack of, enough and good institutions. So the NEP is now, if the NEP does come to force in full swing, the NEP is now insisting that we give children the opportunity to follow a vocation. I mean, at the end of it, we need to, what is in a country like ours, all right, where there is a still large percentage of the population that is struggling to make ends meet. We are studying, majority of our students are educating themselves with the hope of getting a livelihood. All right. So that is one thing we need to look at. That is it always the IITs or the IIMs? Is there no way that we can take the pressure off them by having equally good institutions for vocational training that will give people livelihood? For example, I'll just give a very basic example, like the choir industry in Kerala was a thriving industry by itself. They would sell, or the jute industry, all right. But because there aren't people who's taking up agriculture, people are not going into that aspect at all. Those industries are dying and they make for very good livelihoods. So if we have similar, or maybe the IITs also, they have started giving, they have started doing those, but then you make it very niche by making it an IIT. Yeah. So if you can have good regional colleges or good local colleges that ensure that there is that quality is very important. All right. Just because I am going into an IIT because I have made a certain cutout. All right. It is not that a child, another student with the same caliber may not have had the same opportunities to get to those classes and this and that and then go on to an IIT, unless you're naturally brilliant, in which case you shine wherever you are. So why not have some, give equal importance now, here again, give equal importance to vocational training. Now here again, no stigma should be attached by us to say that, oh, you're doing vocation, that's not good enough. It's like saying, oh, if you're not a science student, you're just not there. That's what it used to be. Okay. So that is something we need to get rid of. And second thing is that when you said about, how do we make it innovative, or we make it more, acceptable? How do we cater to so many people? We cater by uh, making the syllabus, or the whole what should I say, the whole system a little more smooth, so that, see, in India, there are many first generation learners. There are many in all countries. There are. Everybody is not third generation learner. There are countries all over the world. There are people. So how do we, in our countries, I'm talking about my country, how do I make it accessible to all? All right. So I think our first thing should be to have some, as I repeat, to have some selfless people who are dedicated and are thinking about how they see the country 10 years or 20 years down the line, who will then create this education system and keep it free of all kinds of other, influences. All right. So just by making, see, Stanford, Harvard, MIT is only one. So I agree that there should be one IIT, there should not be 20 IITs. All right, then IIT loses its exclusivity. Then what happens, and what are we doing for our gifted children? All right, so I am okay with that. If you are that brilliant, or if you're that competitive and you're whatever, you get there. All right. And that's world over. But majority, what happens to the majority? We need to have a second, or an equally good number of institutes that will help these children, these students, these aspiring students, to learn uh, within, to learn to what will give them a future going ahead. And I think, Mr. Sonawane, that has started happening, because in my own school, I see that there are many more children who are opting for Indian universities, the good Indian universities, the private ones. Yeah. And they prefer to stay in one, is the cost is very high. Traveling abroad, cost is very high. And also they are gradually seeing that there are enough and more opportunities in India also. So that shift, it is very slow, maybe invisible, but it is happening, I can tell you. Yeah. So if we can ensure that we can give them a living, or they can make a living, not we can give them a living, I'm sorry, I take that back. They can make a living of what they have acquired as in terms of knowledge. I'm sure that it will, I think part of the rat race will get alleviated. It will sort of get lightened, I feel.
Mm. Right, right, right. So, ma'am, I wanted to have more clarification from your side, and somehow, but I feel, see, today, I mean, I think in the educational academic year 21-22, as per the Ministry of Education data, 1 lakh, oh, sorry, not 1 lakh, close to about 1 crore graduates, they hit the road on that particular year, right? So today we have a immense competition, right? We don't have enough jobs that are available, right? Entrepreneurship is one route which many are following, and that's a very, very positive change, right? And therefore, because of all these extreme competitive environment, every student or a parent is thinking that, what is going to make me survive is my grades. So even if there are opportunities to enhance their skill sets, they are kind of compelled to go for a rat race. What your comment on this?
Yeah. So while that is also true, it is equally true that in the next 5 years, the jobs are going, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have, today, if you take, for example, if you take the world of advertising, all right, the world of advertising has gone a sea change because of AI, all right, because of digital marketing. At the world of, so that's something you need to, that's what I'm saying. We need young people who will think that, planning for tomorrow is not something that can be done by old people. Planning for tomorrow has to be done by youngsters, guided by people with experience. Yes. Who will foresee that? Who will foresee that what is the uncertainty, and then they will make career options, or they will have courses available in colleges that lends itself to that kind of, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, what is the job scenario going to be? How am I going to eke a living? If I'm not an entrepreneur, if what do I do then? If I have my own startup, what is the startup? The design thinking, you need to think, it's like looking backwards. What is it that we need? And therefore, what do we have to do? So we need young people to think about that. We need a think tank that is free, above, again, I say, above corruption, above politics, above, when I say politics, I don't mean just the party politics, I mean state politics, whatever it is. We need to come together as a country if we really, and India is a country with immense amount of talent. There is no dearth of talent in our country. We do not need to go anywhere to fine tune our this thing. We have enough of youngsters who are talented, who are knowledgeable. And I believe when I talk to these 11th and 12th standard children, or if I talk to children who are, first year college and things like that, I mean, the way they think is, I get gobsmacked by the way they think. I mean, they have lateral vision, like lateral thinking, like we need to encourage that. We need to encourage that and get from them, okay, what is it that you need to do? What is it? What are the careers? What are the courses we need to devise in order to get there, in order to provide this for our children going ahead?
Yes, yes, very true, ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned about NEP, and therefore I'm compelled to ask you this question. That it's been almost like now 4 years
Yeah,
that NEP was launched, but I don't see much of a momentum on NEP. Uh, See, that vision document is given to us,
correct.
but is there an equal will from the government side? Because if this is the framework and we believe that this is going to change our country, then where is that backup? Where is that will
It's not,
to do that?
there. It's not there. Unfortunately, it's not there. And this is where I again say we need young people, able people at the helm. India is a country full of potential, full of very, very bright youngsters. If we don't have right people at the helm, we're going to get lost soon.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. I think you've been very, very candid on that side.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because this is what I'm getting a feel that, yes, we have the vision document, everything is set, but there's no great momentum. And if
No.
a person like you who's in the metro, who have a access to almost all sort of infrastructure, everything, okay, I'm sure the management of your school is also, willing to support you. But India is a large country. Okay, we have our own challenges. So what's happening, in the other part of country? I mean, other interior part of. So there, the education story is very sad. That's the reason that I ask you this question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
right.
we lack teacher training. We're not able to train our teachers. Even if there is a teacher training, what is the follow-up on that teacher training? All right, we lack resources. We're looking at making languages, state languages compulsory. Are we even thinking before we're making it compulsory? You're saying that AI will do the job. How many schools have the financial ability to have an AI lab in the school? It costs. All right. Then there's main thing I find is there's quality control. All right. Then lack of funding from the government. Even if there is funding, is it being utilized properly? All right. Then student motivation after the COVID, especially, I find that there has been a huge shift in student motivation. So, as a school, as educators, it is not easy for us to combat all these issues so there's been a lot of mental distress, there's been a lot of lack of social and these are true, lack of social skills have gone down. Then there is basic social issues. There's been a breakdown in the social fabric. What happens to the children? Children are suffering immensely all over the world. They are suffering from, though I do remember reading up somewhere in a psychology book that, when there is loss of learning, there is, it doesn't last for more than a year or two, and the children catch up, which actually is partly true, but it is a very slow process, let me tell you. Like when I interview children, COVID children, and when I see my COVID children, how they've grown up, children who were born in the COVID, and when I see children, there's a change. Even in the parents' attitude, I see a change. All right. So our system is, however, I feel that our system is much more adaptable, accessible, and practical than many others. Right. So our main thing is finding a purpose and direction, making learning practical, comprehensive, and see also, as I said, that you know that uh, the system is not run by suitable people. Let me put it that way. All right. And every country, Mr. Sonwane, education is rooted to their own culture. Education is rooted to their own culture. So that way, if you see, we really had, I won't talk about the British coming in and all that. Everybody, that's a very complicated, that's another story altogether. British coming in and breaking down our system of education. I mean, I don't say that all of it was bad. We gained some, we lost some. Yeah, we lost they wanted us to become babus, and that's how we have that whole spiel about that. I don't want to go down that thing. But education has to be, I believe, to make it accessible to all. It has to be rooted in your culture. All right. So therefore, you have a lot of now I find a lot of books, a lot of Indian authors who are very popular and are writing about their setting. I grew up reading Uncle Tom's Cabin and Enid Blyton and all that, which is really alien to my country. But now I find wonderful books and a lot of children's literature by Indian authors and beautiful books. So I don't say all is lost. I'm very hopeful. Yes. So there is some amount of so people who can are contributing in their own way. It is also for us educators to pick up on those sound waves, to be there, to always look out for what is educative, what is like this year I have introduced in my school in grade 5, 6, 7, and 8. I've introduced a novel study. And believe me, fabulous books written by Indian authors, children relate to it. All right. Not that my library doesn't have British authors, because I feel that it's important, but equally important. But beautiful books that are rooted in our own culture, that is educative. All right. That is educative. So those are things that are happening, and those are, I'm very hopeful that the fracture will be repaired if there is a fracture. It will be repaired.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
Right. Yes, we must. We must be hopeful about it. Ma'am, you talked about books. And so today, again, a very normal complaint is that students are not reading.
Hmm.
Okay. When I was growing up, when I was in school, clearly remember that almost like in a week, 3 or 4 days, we used
Hmm.
to have a reading hour.
Hmm.
Okay, so monitor will go to a teacher's room. He'll just pick up those couple of bags. We'll start reading, and that entire 45 minutes or so, we will read some or the other storybooks, right? And this is where I personally picked up a habit of reading. And
Correct.
today, I think habit of reading is not nurtured in the school. I don't know if this is my correct observation, may not be pertains to your school, but overall, I'm talking about.
I cannot be
Don't
accused
have
of that.
libraries. We don't have libraries. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we look at the US,
Uh,
right, when every president go out of office, the first thing what he does is just go and build a library, right? And they have so fantastic library system across the country.
Correct.
I don't see much of a library system here in India. So, so please give us your as to how we can actually enhance this reading habits in students.
Yeah. So actually, unfortunately, it's an option. I don't say anything is good or anything is bad. But unfortunately, this is a skill. There are a couple of issues. When we were looking at, in my previous school, when I was looking at why children have lost their reading skills even to read aloud, right? Writing skills, right? When you compare, we sat down. And one of the things that emerged is that nowadays, many parents are working. I remember my mother was not working. She used to read stories to me every day when I was a child till I learned to read. Okay. That is not happening anymore. So when the child is in the nascent years, when the habit developing years, all right, they are not being exposed to storytelling or any family time for that matter anymore. So that is where the root, I believe, lies. Because see, a child cannot be raised by the school teachers alone. It is as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, if not a village, at least a cooperation, a collaboration between home and school is required. So there has to be some understanding. Some things parents have to teach their children when they are small. Right. So that is, most of them are being left to their the ayahs or nannies or whoever. There are grandparents who tell them stories oral. My grandmother did that with me also. That's how I learned my Ramayana and Mahabharat. Initiation was there. All right. But that is not happening anymore. Second is, as we are growing, as they are coming into the higher classes, the again, this Indians, this stigma of make everything child friendly. I'm happy to make it child friendly, but my child is not learning to comprehend. Everything is so picture, I mean visual, that my child is not thinking deeply. All right. So I am facing an issue over there. All right. But I have to make it child friendly. So in order to make it child friendly, everything has to be in comic book. Everything has to be, I don't say comic books are bad. It has its own value, its own place. All right. But what has happened is deep thinking, comprehension of text. I don't know what these children are going to do when they do higher studies, because just picking up a book and reading and comprehending is becoming an issue as I see it. All right. Anything that is not paraphrased, anything that is not word problems, doing mathematics, word problems. Children are making mistakes with word problems because they are not able to read the question properly. The minute you turn it around, because they don't know the nuances of language. All right. So the effect is much more far reaching than you can imagine. All right. And this is what is happening in the B.Ed schools and colleges. Child friendly, child friendly. We want everything child friendly. So the result is we are losing that ability to think deeply, think and pick up a book and read. I mean, I don't know how many. So that is one. And I would say a lot of distractions, a lot of things that uh, children these days do that we did not do when we were children. And as I said, that I had a very simple life. Of course, I am an old woman, so I can't compare myself to anybody, I think. But what I say is that, you need to, in order to, Swami Vivekananda had said this, that, in order to, so somebody had asked him that, what makes Warren Buffett a Warren Buffett? All right. So Warren Buffett had said that no, sorry. The question was, what makes you the richest man or the most successful man in the world even today? So he said that what makes me the most successful man today is not something that you can't do, but you won't do. And what is that? So Warren Buffett said that, every day I read 500 pages. It is not a storybook that I read. It is not a journal. It is to do with my work. All right. So he said, will you even read 300 pages? You're not reading unless you read, unless you concentrate, you develop that concentration, unless you read. There are so many distractions. You'll pick up a pen, your phone and say, oh, who's calling me? Or what's, my WhatsApp, this thing, my Facebook, my WhatsApp, my Instagram, whatever, my reel, whatever. So those are the many distractions. Now, that's a way of the world. Now, again, I don't say I don't wish to be judgmental about that. But that is also something that is happening. That's also part of the change
Yes.
we have to accept. That is also a part of the
Right.
change that we have to accept. So how in the school level, at least up to the school level, how can I ensure? So we have in my school, I have regular library periods, and there are the librarians, the profile of the librarians have changed a lot. They don't just sit behind the desk and say, read this book, read. They tell them how to do an activity, how to read out stories to them, do activities so that they get interested and our readership increases. So the effort has to be made. Unfortunately, we are dealing with times which have changed. And look, that's going to be a part of our life. We can't throw that away, right? But within that, whatever effort as school teachers, as educationists, and I say school teachers most because most of the things that set in or the developing habit developing, things that happen with the child happens in the school years. Yes. So it's very important that, teachers, they put, there is enough emphasis on reading in the schools and in their homes. So if parents also and teachers also work on this together, I think there is some hope.
Yes. So that's where we need to have a more collaboration.
Yes, more
Okay. So
collaboration.
ma'am, yeah, you mentioned about teachers training. So we have a audience.
Yes.
Okay, Rashi, she has asked a question that what unique training do you offer teachers to help them try new teaching methods?
Yeah. So our management is very, very progressive. First and foremost, I always tell my teachers, whatever is affordable, whatever is relevant, whether it's CENTA, whether it's anything that the Times of India is doing, whether it's any other organization is doing, I always tell them, go, watch, listen. All right. And see what you can. Oh, miss, it's, they're only selling their books. So no, I said, no, see what you can glean from there. Because from a single workshop, you will not learn everything. All right. It is years of doing workshops that will help you, everything will gather here. And you have that repertoire of knowledge, of information, your psyche. Yeah, that is you will have, and then it will make a difference to your teaching. So in school, currently this year, we have taken on integrated teaching in a big way. And it's been an immersive kind of an experience that our teachers have been exposed to. So we have we've just started with the pre-primary right up to grade 5 is what we have trained our teachers to do. So our assessments, our culminations are all related. So this is one example that I'm giving you. Besides this, We have a lot of teacher training for STEM, anything that is new, AI, anything that is relevant, anything that is new. The council is also doing a lot of work. The ICSE council is also doing a whole lot of workshops in order to upgrade. In fact, they've made professional development. Every teacher has to put in 50 hours of professional development per year. So there are a lot of leadership programs that are having. So yes, there are opportunities. There are people who are sponsoring them. You have to keep your eyes and ears open and see what is available, what is affordable, and what is relevant, and what you need to do. And I believe that from any workshop that you attend, there is something that you can learn. Yeah.
Okay, good. Ma'am, we have quite a few questions, and they're very interesting, very intriguing questions, which I would like to take up, before we go back to our agenda. So, uh, uh, the question is that what traits do you think makes a great teacher in today's world?
Oh, that's a tough one. A single trait? Uh, I don't really know. Um, I think empathy,
Yes.
empathy, and I do believe I'm old school. I also believe teacher must have a very sound uh, foundation or command of the subject that the teacher is teaching. That's important because that's when the children respect you. When they know that you know your work, they will always respect you. Yeah. So those are
Okay.
to me, that is very important, as it is important for the teacher to be empathetic. If a child hasn't understood, if a child is a little slow, if a child hasn't done homework, has done badly in an examination, or not to be judgmental. Every child has his or own, and every child is smart. Nobody is foolish. I believe that. Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Howard Gardner says that there are 8 different ways you can learn.
In
Yeah,
their own
okay.
way, everybody is smart.
Correct, correct. Everyone is smart. Yes. Ma'am, another very interesting question. What specific changes have you observed in student engagement and performance since implementing the Innovation Hub in schools? Can you share a memorable success story?
Yeah, so there was, definitely share a memorable story. So there's this one boy, very naughty, very, very naughty, and he was getting miserable grades in grade 5. He was in grade 5. Then we started the Innovation Hub in school, and he started going to the Innovation, and he loved it in the Innovation Hub. And by the time he was in grade 7, he was the topper in class because he had found his niche. He started doing well. So what happened is that when he started going to that innovation hub and he realized that his talent lay in innovating things and doing Internet of Things and deconstructing and then reconstructing and getting to the bottom of, so he was a child obviously who needed a different kind of a teacher. And when he found that teacher in the Innovation Hub, his confidence grew. All right. And from the naughtiest boy, I think he was awarded the best outgoing student or something like that at the end of those 3 years. So that is the transformation I have seen. If you can put a child in the right environment, and if you can identify the strength of the child and how the child will learn the best that he can, I think it can be. But of course, when you are talking about when you are talking about in a big classroom a scenario or in a class, I mean, this was a place where we had the innovation hub. Every school doesn't have an innovation hub. It was that what was that child was good in, so we managed to do that. So yeah, so there are ways in, it takes a little doing to be a teacher. A teacher is not somebody you can just come to class, deliver, and go back and correct papers. And it's not, that doesn't work. It never worked. It never worked, So if you ask me today, which teacher do I remember the most? Of course, I remember my professors in college were brilliant. But school teachers, I remember my kindest teacher. So a little bit of love, a little bit of scolding, and having that knowledge base so that the children know they respect you for it. I mean, don't try to fool children. because they will know immediately that you don't know your work. So it's very
Yes.
important. Preparedness, going to class, being 120% prepared is, even if you taught that lesson 30 times before, that 31st time also you need to prepare and go. Don't think you will have that one odd child in your class who will ask you that one odd question you will not be able to answer. Yeah. So that's
Good.
very important. Yeah, that's very important.
Good. So Mariam wants to know that with the growing need for digital literacy, do you think coding and technology should be introduced at an earlier stage in school?
So
Or
yes, why not?
yes,
If the children are ready to take it as they are, because they have grown up, COVID children have grown up using what? We had online classes. They've attended classes. My pre-primary children have attended classes online. So they are used to it. Like we have the slate and the pencil and the eraser. They have been used to online classes. So yes, simplified, basic, it's good to go. We're good to go. Because that's where we need to, in fact. We don't keep it back for a rainy day. Hold it back for a rainy day.
okay, good. So Viren Chabra wants to know that in your experience, what are the key elements that should be integrated into the curriculum to promote creativity and problem solving students?
Um, Key ingredients. First and foremost, um, see, um, I think that this is in my opinion, there are always three ways to solve a problem. Okay. So first and foremost, the teacher must know three ways to teach something in class. All right. The minute you know the three ways to teach, you have three ideas already that are different from three different ideas already. All right. Similarly, you should be willing to accept if the child is able to allow him to speak and to solve a problem the way he thinks with his own logic is the solution to the problem. Even if you solve a Mensa problem, you may reach the same answer, but with a different logic. All right, you take any IQ test. There's a pattern in solving an IQ test, but your logic may be your own. As long as the answer is correct, it should be accepted. But again here, it is important that the teacher is accepting, and the teacher will be accepting of all those differences only when the teacher himself or herself is aware of it. Has to constantly study. There is no, if this is not the way, I mean, this is the only way, my way or the highway. It cannot be that. It has to be. So the teacher preparedness, learning, constant learning has to be. Innovation on part of the teacher has to happen. It is only then that you can inspire students to be innovative. All right, to be accepting of answers that are different from the way you think. It's backed up with logic, substantiated by textual information, by any other information. You should be willing to accept that. Yeah.
What I conclude here is that what you're saying is that teacher need to be the guide by side rather than stage on the stage,
Correct.
right? It's
Correct.
my way or a highway
Because
instead of
because children know so much, and unless you keep abreast, you read all the time. It's very challenging. Teacher's job is very challenging. Whether you're teaching in grade 1 or grade 12, it doesn't make a difference. The curiosity, the mind of the child, and you have to be that person who creates that environment of learning. If you're not able to create that environment for learning, and how are you doing that? By not just confining myself to Indian authors or British authors. I have to know about my Black American authors. I have to know about my Spanish authors. I have to know, period. I have to study. I have to go to the library. I have to do my reading. I have to be aware. If I'm not, read the newspaper every day. If I'm not, how can you discuss anything in class that's topical? How can you discuss the budget if you don't know the budget yourself in class? I mean, I find this lacking,
yeah.
So you have to read, you have to read, you have to be abreast with knowledge. It's important.
Okay. And the last question, ma'am, and very, very interesting.
Yeah.
How can parents and the local community play a role in supporting innovative educational practice? What strategies have worked well in your experience?
You know something? You don't have to be specially innovative. You can tell your child at home to shell peas. You can put dal and chawal together and say separate. You can take your dal ka dabbas, remove them, all the dabbas, and say, put on the right back dabbas, the lids on the right dabbas. Okay? You can tell your child that, you can tell your child, sit down or tell me a story. You can tell your child a story and say, okay, this is half the story. You tell me the other half of the story. It doesn't take very much. It doesn't. And these are things that our parents used to do with us, our grandmothers used to do with us. All right. Sit down there next to me, stitch a rag doll with me. All right. So then from there comes a lot of things. The community, I don't know how the community really can help. I mean, I haven't really thought of the community helping in that sense, how to be creative. But there are lots of ways, I suppose, uh, you know, uh, there are many ways, I suppose, you can do, but those are not very natural ways. Those would have to be thought out and a little artificial, but to help naturally, to be, to do, I don't know. I really don't know. It's a difficult, it's not a question I've thought of, but it
Correct.
takes very little to do it. If you want to do it, if you want to help your child get creative, if you tell him the stories instead of watching the videos all the time, ask him to paint a picture, ask him to do a painting. When he sits down, ask him to paint a picture. I've seen children who have painted the sky green, and when I've asked that child, why have you painted the sky green? So that child promptly answered, that there are so many trees. You see these trees? It's a reflection of the leaves, of the color of the leaves on the sky. I mean, look at that. How amazing! How do I tell you? These are things that have to be felt. It's hard to uh, give you any straight cut formula about how, these things happen. Give them the freedom. Give them time to
Correct.
play, free play. All right. You will invariably find children going under the table and making a house and settling. Now, homing is a very um, instinctive thing in all living beings, whether it's an animal or a human being. Even the ancient men, they lived in caves. That homing, that making a home, it's a very instinctive thing. You'll find children going on. Allow them that. Allow them to do that. It doesn't need a lot of thinking, ma'am. It doesn't need a lot of planning. Allow them. Just give them a couple of equipments and just say, okay, what do you want to do with this? What do you want? When you go for the entrance test to NID, they give you problems like this. They give you what is the most important thing that you need early in the morning. So, and they gave a clay to a child, friend of mine, whose daughter got into NID. So, what's the most important thing that you need? So she made a commode. That's the first thing. So,
Correct.
yeah. So, I mean, it's very hard to very hard to give examples of this. But yeah, you have to allow the child free time. Don't tutor your child all the time. Don't tutor your child all the time.
Correct. 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 We must also look into more higher order
Yes, thinking.
thinking questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And that also reminds me, I think you must have also seen the Ken Robinson talking about such anecdote in his one of the TED talk, that when a teacher asks a student, a small, very young girl, that what you're drawing, and she says that I'm drawing God. And the teacher says that, have you seen a God? She
Hmm.
said, wait for 5 minutes. I'll
Hmm.
show you how God looks like.
Sure.
It's their perception. Yeah, yeah, that's very important. Yeah. So,
Well,
ma'am,
now,
I'll just
yeah,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
So we are going a little overboard on the time, but if you allow me another 10 minutes, I will be very happy. Yeah.
Okay.
So, ma'am, again, one area where I want your perspective is about on our exam system, right? Uh, we are into that, pressure cooker environment. Student keeps giving one or the other examination.
Hmm.
Okay. Can there be some other way we can assess our student, okay, more holistically?
So, fortunately for us, the ICSE Council, I mean, I've always taught and I've studied in an ICSE school. I've taught in ICSE schools all my life. But there is one component that is project work. In the higher classes, it is for 30 marks for the practicals, and in the lower classes, up in grades 9 and 10, and in the lower classes also, there's a 20-mark component that is that allows you to uh, you know to do your own thing. They do project work, and 80 marks is, or 70 marks in the higher classes is your written paper. So fortunately, we have that system. Uh, I think we could look at making that 50-50 so that there is equal weightage, because I believe that a 50, you can make an equally challenging 50-mark paper with in content. There's no issue with that. If you're a creative teacher, you can do that. So yeah, that is something that definitely could be, this pressure cooker. It would take a lot of, because some people are better at doing things with their hands, rather can have made beautiful projects, very innovative projects, and maybe they don't score so well in the papers. Yes, and the other thing that brings me to the other thing, the question paper pattern could be a little more, uh, you know, um, it could change a little more to help children who are this creative lot, and who can write an answer where either one of the answers is acceptable. So a more open-ended question would be but we have also seen typically that in our system, that as I said, we are yet to evolve in that sense. I have seen that majority of the children are comfortable with the regular textbook questions. So while we are thinking of the higher order questions, and we are thinking of the children who are sort of struggling, who can make it to that pass mark with those last 4 questions, which are very simple answers. Majority wants the standard question papers, and majority wants to pass that standard test. But yes, there's a lot that can be done, really speaking. But at the same time, that pressure cooker environment is important.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It's important because life is all about pressure cooker. You're a crisis.
Okay.
In that time, when a doctor does a surgery, it's within that time that you make a decision. It is what you have learned that you recall. Um, there's no getting away from that.
Okay. So you mean to say that positive stress, it has to be taken as a positive stress. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, I also would like to have your perspective on one of the very, very key element, and that is mental health and well-being. So, like, this is again a very, very critical area, okay, and especially post-pandemic, right? So according to you, how schools and institutions need to better support students on the emotional and the psychological well-being? Because that's a constant complaints that students are facing anxiety and depressions and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah. So as I said, the times have changed. And obviously in COVID, there were signs of these changes happening even before the COVID, very honestly. And it has just taken a 360-degree sort of a sort of a round sort of a thing during the COVID, perhaps. First and foremost, I keep telling the parents that, look, you need to love your children. You need to know. So the first society, or the first bonding that a child has, is with their family members. So parents need to provide that very, very, very strong sense of family, and that I love you no matter what. My mother and my father loves me no matter what. This is where I come back. This is my home. This is where I'm not judged. This is where my parents love me for what I am, the way I am, not for ABCD. All right. So if that is strong, if you are able to provide your children with a very, very strong, sense of home and love from the family, where they know that they're supported by the family, it goes a long way in building the strength and the character of a child. Okay, that's one. Second is that in the school environment. Now, see, in a school environment, there will always, from times immemorial, there has to be a there was a thing between the toppers and the middlers and the not so good people. Okay, it is up to the school to not create that pressure by saying, see, the ICSE board doesn't give you a first class distinction, nothing. All right, they give you, everybody gets a pass certificate. All right, so doing away with ranks in class, doing away with ranks, giving ranks in class, it takes a lot of pressure off the students. All right. Third thing is that we don't do this very often, but we need to do this. We need to have a record of what the child was in the beginning of the term as opposed to the progress of the child. We have a progress, we have a report card, but that is not it is not it's just a thing of a collection of marks. We don't see that the child who has scored a 50% at the beginning of the term has made an effort and got a 70 in the second term. We don't applaud them for that. We say, oh, still a 70, why not a 90? So we need to think back as adults. A lot of the pressure that we create is created by us. We are at fault for that. Yeah. So we need to sit back and say, okay, the child has moved from 50% to 70%. Wow, that's an improvement. That's an achievement. And if the child has moved even from 0 to 50, even that's an achievement. Let's look at that. All right. See, if we do these little things, if we practice it, we have to be a little mindful. All right. And not have the toppers in class being treated separately from, being given, we in our own way, consciously or unconsciously, we are in many ways responsible for doing this, for creating this, this difference. So that teachers are, children being children, they feel that they're accepted or they're not accepted basis on what we say. If it is accepted by us, they'll accept it. If my mother tells me that I'm happy with my child getting a 70%, it's okay. If I'm happy, my child is very good in tennis. My child sings very well. Children will be at peace.
Ma'am, as a sustainable solution, do you think that, suppose if we incorporate curriculum with such kind of emotional intelligence as a part of our curriculum, will that really help?
I think it might, but again, it is not something that is to be theorized. It is something that has to be real and from
action.
Your
heart. Correct. So, good, ma'am. So, I think it's over 1 hour that we've been discussing this topic, and thank you for your candid response. So, ma'am, looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of education in India? Do you think we are on the right path of creating an education system that prepares students for the challenges of the 21st century?
Not unless we rectify certain things quickly. I just do a quick recap on that. One is devoting much more, giving more attention to higher education in India, where we have more people doing research. We don't have many innovations in the last couple of years. We haven't really come up. We've developed on what was. We haven't really come up with anything new. So that's a concern. So that's something we need to really invest on. And for research scholars, give them a good stipend so that they would want to do research, come back to India and do research and give to the country. And third is that we need to do a lot of things, have it completely free of any politics, let's be practical about the way forward. Let's have young people, fresh blood, people who think how it can be taken. Let's look at future options, and let's create a syllabus, a new testing pattern by which the children can have greater options that will, that will help them to make career choices for their future.
And ma'am, lastly, what message would you like to give to our students and parents and educators who are navigating the current education system?
See, the educators are my colleagues. I have nothing to say to them. What I expressed today was actually what I have experienced and what I feel after having been in the education field for more than 30 years. These are my learnings. These are my individual. I mean, I have had fantastic mentors. I've been very fortunate to have very, very, very forward-thinking mentors, which is why, I think whatever I little I have achieved today is because of my mentors. But it is a very individual thing, how much you can learn, how much you can absorb, how much you can adapt is very important, You have to adapt, all right? Without giving away, without compromising on the core is something, a fine balance that you have to learn to draw. Yeah. Like, for example, I said that, that pressure cooker is important, but how we can assess can change.
Yeah.
So that is my perception. That is my understanding. But it may be, somebody else may have some other thoughts on it, So I'm very hopeful that as I said, that we have a country full of very bright minds, who, if we don't channelize their energies in the right direction, if we don't give them enough opportunities, enough scope, I think may go, because, as they said, that Bob Hope said that you can't go on being a good or a bad egg. You either addle or you hatch. Okay. So we don't want them to addle. We want them to hatch and become good. So we have to provide the platform, and it is our responsibility to do that, because we are the ones. I mean, when I say we, I don't say, I mean, people, the powers, the people involved, who have to put their own personal interests aside and really think of the future of the country. Otherwise, we'll have more of criminality. Otherwise, we'll have more of children not knowing what to do with their lives, more of addiction, more of mental breakdown. So, in order to stay away from all that, we have to create a system whereby the children are given an opportunity to express themselves, to grow what they want to be. What they find joy in and what they find opportunities in. Yeah. So we have to work around that and give them that environment in which we can nurture them.
Right. Thank you so much. I think for me, the biggest takeaway, ma'am, what you mentioned is that it's a time that we really entrust our young generation in the education system and let them take a lead, and oldies, take a back seat and maybe support them.
Absolutely.
Therefore, then we can have a India shining in true sense, right?
Absolutely.
Because education is so critical.
Absolutely. And it's our strength.
Yes.
It is our strength. With a population as large as ours, it is our strength, and we must leverage.
Correct. Thank you so much for your time, ma'am. I think I went a little overboard. So I said that, we'll conclude in 45 minutes, but we are a little over than 1 hour. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.